Hello, this is Just the Way It Is. My name is Carl and this is episode 2 of a series of videos that I'm doing about Multistrada 1200 AIM ownership and the things that you're liable to encounter, the things that you need to think about owning and buying a used Multistrada. So, episode 2. So why is this one called Comfort? Well, I could have done many other episodes in order, but I decided that comfort was the biggest thing for me after I initially got the bike to improve. And I had a problem with the seat and I had a problem with the screen, and I found that really early on. For an hour to an hour and a half, the standard seat is absolutely fine. After that, for me, I had quite a bit of discomfort and quite a bit of pain. Now, if you look on the forums, there are some people that are extremely lucky. The standard seat doesn't cause a problem for them, and they don't change it, they don't upgrade it, and they have no problems. But one of the things is the Multistrada has a whole range of different seats. So if you have a problem and it's uncomfortable, you need to find out what seat you have, because they're not all the same. So in the first Mark, we'll call it the Mark 1, 1200, 2010 through 2012, the seating space was much smaller, much shorter. And it wasn't until around 2012, just before they brought out this, which is the Dual Spark version of 2013 year model, they actually extended the rider space and they shortened the pillion seat. So that was the first change they made. And then you need to bear in mind that there are actually 4 different types of seat, or four bikes. So you've got the base version, this one, hard to find, that had the same seat as the standard S. Then after the S, they had the Touring, which I think in 2013-14 was only available in silver, but that has a completely different seat. It looks similar, but its shape and its form is different. So that's the next seat. And then of course the Pikes Peak has another seat that's completely different. Now some people on the forum say that it's just the stitching and the way that the seat is formed and the way it's presented, but the seats are the same. This is just not true. They're all very different. And I know this because I bought all of them on eBay to try them. So one lesson I want to share right from the beginning, and I should have done this from the beginning, it was a mistake I made, is go and talk to your local Ducati dealer. I found out after I'd gone through this whole process of changing my seat and buying them on eBay, buying them used and then reselling them when they didn't work. I mentioned this to the Ducati dealer and they said, well, why didn't you ask, Carl? We've got a lot of seats in stock. You could have just rolled up with your bike, fitted what we've got and tried it. So one way not to waste a lot of money and time is go to your dealer and ask. So the standard seat. So the standard seat is certainly wide enough, but the problem is it's raised in the center. And what I mean by that, you have concave, which is a dip, and you have convex, which has got a little ridge. And this is convex. So in this center region, you don't have that space for the gentleman's region, or more specifically, your coccyx bone. And it puts quite a bit of pressure, certainly for me, and it became very uncomfortable. The second problem with the standard seat is the material. It's really slippy. And if you ride normally and you're just touring, you can be relatively okay with this surface. But as soon as you start to move on a bit, the pace increases and you start to brake harder and deeper into turns, you end up sliding forward. And if you can imagine what that's going to do, that's not very comfortable and you end up with a very sore area at the front, which is not very pleasant. So there were 2 problems for me with the standard seat. The slippery surface and the fact that it's slightly ridged in the center and doesn't give the coccyx space to sit without excessive pressure. So I ended up going through the difficult route of trying lots of different seats. I bought them used on eBay, tried them and then resold them. And eventually what I ended up with was changing to the Touratech seat. I actually saw it in a car park on another Multistrada. I had a chat with the guy and I could see there's a real difference here. It's hard to show you on the video. It's perhaps the same width or certainly as wide as the standard seat. But what you've got in here, if you can look at my finger, I can push a centimetre down where the material is quite taut. There is a very distinct concave shape. It's not as excessive as this. It's only about 1 centimetre, but it's in the perfect spot not to cause any pressure. And so these ridges here, because you've effectively got a ridge on either side, that supports the bones either side of your hips. And then in the middle, your coccyx got space. Also, the material is very different, and for the Touratech Comfort seat, there are 2 benefits. One is if it rains and it gets wet on the standard seat, the seat becomes very slippery. The rain moves through the outer material onto the material underneath, which is a vinyl or a plastic, and it runs off the seat. So it doesn't actually sit on the surface. It also dries very quickly, and it also is not anywhere near as slippery as the standard seat. So if you're wearing leathers, this is lovely. And there's the raise here, there's probably a couple of centimetres difference in this profile, which is enough that if you do slide forward, you're not gonna bash your gentleman's parts. So for me, the seat was a big change, but you need to try it yourself. Some people say they don't have any problems. Okay, next thing is screens. As you can see, I've got a shorty screen on there. This is not the standard Pikes Peak screen. It's designed very, very similar. It's made by a company called WRS. I'll try and put a link up here to where I got it. I'll put a couple of decals on. But there's another little trick with the standard screen, which for me made a huge difference. And it is not what everybody talks about on the forums. It is the complete opposite of what everybody else does. And I'll change the video and you can have a look. See you in a moment. So this is the sport screen, or the shorty. It's not a Pikes Peak one, it's not a Ducati one. This is made by a company called WRS, which are based in Italy. The quality is really, really good. It's a nice thick screen. You can get them in 3 versions or 3 tints. You can get clear, you can get this light smoked, and you can get the dark. I actually prefer the look of the light smoked, and then these additional details, you can get decals for all kinds of things, all kinds of bikes, and that's all I've added. This is how I ride most of the time during the summer. Once spring's out the way and the big screen's off, this is what goes on. And I find this the best compromise. You're going to get no wind noise and no turbulence. And I think the standard Pikes Peak screen does a very, very similar thing. You've still got your adjustment up and down, so you've got a little bit of flexibility. But in general, during the summer, this is what I ride most of the time. Now, obviously, it depends on your height, your body size, and of course, airflow over screens is an interesting subject, because the more modern bikes have very intricate and clever aerodynamics. So this is fairly basic. But what I really want to show you, and I'll fit this in a moment and give you an example and explain this in more detail. This is your standard screen. So hold on a moment. Okay, so this is your standard screen that would probably come fitted from new with your bike. There are 2 versions of it. If you buy the touring version, the lip at the top is slightly taller and there's a more distinct uplift. So as the airflow comes over the screen, it deflects it even higher over the rider to give you a calmer place behind the cockpit. But what I found was, and I bought one on eBay and tried it and didn't like it, is it creates a lot of turbulence. As the airflow comes over the top, because it's got more of a lip, it sends the air up and the turbulence is generated. So this is your standard screen. And what I want to show you is this. There are some products on the market, I think they're called Aztec spacers. And what they do is they mount onto these points and they allow you to bring the screen out and then make it more vertical. So in other words, bring the angle of the screen much more vertical. And there's a company in America that also make them. I'll try and find the links and put the names up on the video now. However, what I tried was I actually had a look at what modern bikes are doing, and a lot of bikes are thinking more, a lot of manufacturers are thinking more about the aero and creating a calm space in this cockpit area. So this is what I found. One other thing, if you order the screen from WRS, what you're going to need to get are the grommets. Unless you want to constantly swap them from your standard screen onto your new one, I'll put the part number up above. I think they're only a couple of euros, not very expensive, and you can put them on to make your new screen, your short screen for the summer. So what did I do that's different? Well, what I found was, and it was a horrible looking mess while I was playing with it. I tried bits of foam and tape, and I taped this at different angles with different bits of foam at different degrees to try it. And along with everybody else on the forum, I went with this, moving it more vertical to see what I could achieve. But what I actually found, the best result is raising the bottom and lowering the top. So what do I mean by that? So if I put my finger on there, these aren't secured in tightly, but that's how the screen sits as standard. And what I'm doing is introducing around 8 to 10 millimeters of space on the two bottom spacers, and what it creates is this little gap that you can get your finger under here, and introduces an airflow that comes on the other side of the screen. And I don't know all of the dynamics of it. You'd probably find it in a wind tunnel, but actually air coming up behind here and over the top creates for a much less turbulence. So this little tiny modification by adding 8 millimeter on the bottom, for me, got rid of the turbulence and the noise, and it was a transformation. I couldn't believe just a small little thing makes such a big difference. However, on the 2013-14 Dual Spark version, this bike, as you can see, there are 4 mounting points for the screen. On all the other Ducati Multistradas, there are 3 mounting points. You've got 2 at the top and 1 at the bottom, and it is much easier on the 1200 DVT, which is the 2015 to 18, and the 2018 to 21 1260, to put a spacer, and you can try and experiment with different size spacers on the bottom, because you've only got 1 mounting point and you don't have any problems with the screws. But with the 4-point mounting system, you are limited because of the angle at which the screws don't go in direct, they come in from the side. This is a bit of an over-exaggeration, so you are limited to how much you can get away with. So your standard screws look like something like this. They've got a collar which keeps the screen secure in one place, and what I ended up doing was a mixture of tap washers and spacers, and I think we've got something like 8 millimeters. And you might be thinking, that can't make all the difference, but it really does make a considerable difference to the airflow over the screen. Now, obviously, depending on your build, your height, how big your upper body is, I'm 6 foot 185, 1 meter 85 tall. It depends on your build. This might not work for you, but this is contra, or the opposite to what everybody else does, where they bring the screen out and they create much more turbulence and noise behind the cockpit. So I hope that helps. Give it a try and let me know below. Okay, thank you. See you in the next video.